I was reviewing a deal on the 41st floor when my phone rang. "Mr. Carter, your wife just gave birth. She's in critical condition." I froze. "Wife, I don't have a wife. Not anymore. Not since Emily Bennett walked out of my life." And straight into his arms. But that name, Emily. It hit like a truck. The voice said, ICU. Unconscious. Emergency contact. Me. Why me? That's when it hit me. She didn't dial the wrong number. She chose it. Now I'm racing through Seattle rain, 5 years of silence roaring in my ears. She's alone. He's nowhere. And I may be her last chance to make it out alive. What would you do if the woman who broke you listed you as her only hope? Drop a comment if you've ever been the one who showed up even when they didn't deserve it. Subscribe. This story only gets deeper. The number glowed on my screen, familiar but wrong. Just one digit off from the number I used to own. My breath caught. There are no accidents in this life, only messages we're too proud to hear the first time. Phoenix hit me like a punch to the gut. The summer I lost her, and him. Ryan Walsh, best man turned backstabber. I'd trusted him with everything. A two-faced bastard with perfect teeth and poison charm. And Emily, God, Emily, she was the girl I thought I'd grow old with. Until she vanished in his rearview mirror. Now her name is being read out by a hospital, and my number is the one they called. This wasn't random. My thumb hovered over the screen. My heart pounded with a sound I hadn't heard in 5 years. She didn't just call the wrong man, she called the right one too late. The rain came down sideways as I ran for the car. Wind howled down the avenues like a warning. Seattle was angry tonight. Or maybe I was. The city matched my pulse, fast, cold, unforgiving. 12 minutes to Harborview. My tires screeched into wet lanes as my mind played memories on loop. Her voice, her laugh, her walking away. I gripped the wheel tighter, every red light a personal insult. The wipers thrashed like fists, trying to clear the chaos. My jaw clenched. Why now? Why me? She had a husband, a choice, and she didn't choose me. But then why? My name. Why list me? Unless she knew. Unless something inside her buried deep beneath the lies and regret remembered what we used to be and still believed in it. I didn't have answers. Only this. If she was dying, I wasn't going to let her die alone. My phone buzzed again. ICU. Stable but unresponsive. I took the next turn, hard tires shrieking. My mind was already 5 years back. Phoenix. The bar. The night Ryan laughed in my face and said, 2 weeks. I bet I could take her from you. I told him to go to hell. He brought her back from it wearing a diamond I never got to give. I remember standing in my empty condo, the ring box still warm from my palm, closing it like I was sealing a coffin. I left town the next day, built a company, built a name, built walls so high even my shadow couldn't find me. But her name just shattered every brick. I'm not 25 anymore. I don't chase love like a boy with a paper heart. I'm Jack Carter, and tonight, I don't care who she married. She called me, and I'm on my way. The hospital doors swallowed me whole, and the smell of antiseptic hit like a slap. Cold glass, stainless steel, polished floors, no warmth anywhere. At the ICU entrance, a woman in scrubs looked up from a clipboard. "Are you the husband?" she asked, voice steady, but eyes searching my face. That one word, husband, cut deeper than any blade. I opened my mouth, but nothing came for a second. I wasn't her husband. I wasn't anything anymore. I'm Jack, I said finally, my voice lower than I meant. Carla, that was her name, nodded slowly but didn't look away. In her eyes, I caught a flash of something, a silent question. "Then why are you here?" My answer was a look back harder than steel. Because no one else is. Carla led me down a corridor lined with humming machines and doors with glass panes. At the end stood a tall man with gray temples, hands in his coat pockets. "Dr. Mitchell," he said, shaking mine firmly. His eyes were tired but direct. He spoke in clipped sentences, complication during delivery, heavy blood loss, special anticoagulant required, insurance already denied coverage. "We have a 24-hour window," he said. "Without it..." He didn't finish. My stomach tightened, the buzz of machines, the faint beeping from behind the wall, it all pressed in. I didn't need to think. "Get her what she needs," I said. "Put it on me." His brows rose a fraction. "Everything, everything." My voice didn't shake. The air felt sharper after I said it like a blade drawn. They slid the paper across a small table, a single sheet that could change everything. My name printed neatly at the bottom. I took the pen. My hand trembled for an instant, memories of Phoenix, of empty condos, of a ring box clicking shut. Then I pressed down ink, biting into paper. Jack Carter. It wasn't just a signature, it was a stake in the ground. Across from me, Carla watched, her face unreadable, then gave the smallest nod as if she'd seen this moment before. I slid the paper back. The hum of the ICU filled the silence. I'd stepped into a role that wasn't mine but felt like it should have been all along. Outside, rain hit the windows harder. Himawar. Inside, everything held its breath, waiting for what came next. The ICU swallowed every sound except the slow, mechanical beeping beside her bed. Emily lay pale as marble wires snaking from her arms like roots from a fallen tree. The white sheets looked too heavy for her small frame. I moved closer, the antiseptic smell cutting through everything, and rested a hand on the cold rail of her bed. Her eyelids didn't flutter. The monitor ticked like a countdown clock. In that sterile silence, I felt the weight of 5 lost years pressing on my chest. She looked fragile, but she was still Emily, the girl who once filled every corner of my life. My throat tightened. I bent down, voice low enough for only her to hear. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." The machines kept their rhythm, but for a heartbeat, it felt like the room exhaled. I left her room and walked down the corridor until I reached the glass wall of the nursery. Warm light glowed inside, soft and almost holy against the hospital's gray halls. Tiny cries floated through the glass like echoes of some other world, row after row of bassinets. And then her. A small bundle swaddled in pink tag, at her foot, infant Bennett. No first name, no identity yet. I pressed my palm to the glass. She moved slightly, a flicker of life, a piece of Emily and the man who'd abandoned her. But in my mind, a name rose before I could stop it. Katie. Simple, pure. The name I'd once imagined for a daughter we'd never have. The syllables filled the hollow space inside me. For the first time in years, I felt something close to belonging. Dr. Mitchell appeared at my shoulder phone, already dialing. "We need to reach her husband," he murmured. I stayed silent, eyes still on the glass. A click, then a burst of steel drums and laughter poured from the speaker, music from a resort sun and booze dripping through every note. Mr. Walsh Mitchell asked. A lazy male voice came back, irritated. "Yeah, what now?" The doctor explained Emily's condition, his words clipped but polite. On the other end, Ryan's sigh was heavy with boredom, not fear. "Right. Discharge in a week. I'll swing by then." Then a dial tone, abrupt and final. The contrast hit like a fist. Emily bleeding under hospital lights. Ryan sipping rum somewhere tropical. I felt my jaw tighten. That was all the proof I needed. If she was going to be saved, it wasn't going to be by him. It was going to be by me. After the call with Ryan, I didn't say a word. I just stood there, watching his name fade from the screen like smoke. Then I reached down and grabbed the strap of my bag tight, like anchoring myself to something that still made sense. The hallway smelled like bleach and tension. Nurses passed me heads down, but every now and then, they looked. Not with pity, not with doubt. Like I belonged there. Like I was her man. I felt it rising inside my chest like a fire I thought was long gone. The old me. The man who didn't flinch. I turned back to Dr. Mitchell, calm, certain. If he won't show up for her, I said, then for the next 7 days, consider me her husband. No pause, no stutter. The words just came. He gave a slow nod. Understood. 7 days, that's all I needed to rewrite the ending. That night, I didn't go home. Didn't even consider it. I stayed in the ICU lounge on one of those stiff, miserable vinyl chairs that stick to your skin. Every hour, someone's monitor beeped. Every hour, I wondered if hers would stop. Sometime past 2 a.m., I nodded off. Dreams came, jagged flashes of Emily laughing, crying, disappearing into that bar in Phoenix Ryan's smirk. And then a baby's cry far away and urgent. Not from the dream. I woke to find Carla laying a thin blanket over me. She didn't say a word, just pressed the corners in like I was something fragile that needed tucking in. I sat there staring out the dark hospital window. Rain beat hard against the glass like fists, like time running out. Somewhere 2 floors up, a baby cried again. I knew her name now, and somehow she already knew mine. Morning came gray and reluctant, like it didn't want to witness anything. I walked into Emily's room just as a nurse was checking her vitals. Then movement, small, delicate. Her eyelids fluttered like paper in wind. "Emily," I said, stepping closer, her lips parted dry as ash, eyes cracked open, unfocused, then locked on mine. She blinked twice slowly. "Jack," I nodded. Her hand twitched under the sheet, and I reached for it, gentle, steady. She gripped it like someone drowning. "The baby," she rasped. "She's perfect," I said softly. "Tiny, strong, beautiful." Her chest lifted once in a sob she didn't have the energy to release. The machines hummed around us, but in that moment, everything else just fell away. Her eyes didn't look afraid anymore. Not while I was there, and neither did mine. Next, she was going to ask me the question I wasn't ready for. Why me? Why now? And I'd need to tell her the truth. Her grip tightened around my fingers, and for a moment, I thought she might fall apart right there. But she didn't. She just sighed, a long, hollow sound like air leaving an old wound. "Everything's been wrong for a long time, Jack," she said, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "He doesn't call me by my name anymore. Just, hey, you, or nothing at all." I stayed quiet. Let her say it. Let her bleed it out. "I've been pretending," she whispered, "pretending it's fine, pretending it doesn't hurt." The words cut sharper than any betrayal ever had. This wasn't just about Ryan. This was about a woman who'd lost herself. I reached across the bed and brushed her hair gently off her forehead. My voice caught, but I didn't look away. "You don't have to pretend anymore," I said. "Not with me." She closed her eyes, like someone finally allowed to rest. She opened her eyes again, softer now, searching. "How did you even know I was here?" I leaned back in the chair, hands folded. My voice came out low-measured. "They called the wrong number," I said. "Or maybe you gave them the wrong number on purpose." Her brows drew together. "The last digit off by one," I explained. "Your file had my old cell. From Phoenix, before I disappeared." She stared at me like she wasn't sure if it was fate, a mistake, or a message she didn't remember sending. But the second I heard your name, I added, "I knew." She swallowed hard. "Jack, why'd you come?" I didn't blink, didn't flinch. "Because I promised you once," I said. "If you ever needed me, I'd come. No questions, no judgment." The silence that followed was the kind you earn. Heavy, sacred. She nodded, like some part of her had waited to hear that all along. The next morning was quieter. A different kind of quiet, not dread this time, but something tender, unsure. Emily sat upright for the first time, hands folded over a hospital blanket. Her eyes were clearer, less hunted. I walked in with 2 coffees. She accepted hers wordlessly. After a while, I asked, "Have you picked a name yet?" She gave a tired smile and shook her head. "He wasn't around to talk about it," she said. "Said we'd figure it out later." That ache hit again, but I buried it. "I used to have a name in mind," I said. "Years ago, just in case." She looked over, waiting. I said it soft, like handing her something fragile. "Katie." She didn't answer right away, but her lips curved, slow, small, real. The first true smile I'd seen from her in 5 years. "That's beautiful," she said, and for the first time, it felt like something new had actually begun. She hadn't eaten all day. The nurse said it was normal post-op fatigue, but I knew better. Emily had always been the type to skip meals when her world spun too fast. So I went to the corner deli. Nothing fancy, just real food, real warmth. A chicken noodle soup in a to-go container. I brought it back, peeled the lid, handed her a spoon. Her hands trembled. She didn't say anything, just took one bite, then another. I stayed quiet, cleared the tray when she was done, wiped the lid, tossed the napkin. Little things. The kind you only do for someone you still love or never stopped loving. As I turned to leave the room, I caught Carla watching from the doorway. She didn't speak, didn't smile, just gave a look. Not of sympathy, not of curiosity. It was recognition, like she'd seen this before. Not a patient, not a stranger. Family. That night, I visited the nursery again. Glass wall, soft light, quiet like a church. I held up my phone, zoomed in past the labels and wires and blinking monitors. There she was, Katie. She stretched one tiny arm slow, uncertain, like testing the world for the first time. She waved. I whispered to no one. I swear she waved. Later I showed Emily the clip on my phone. Her eyes narrowed at first, focusing, then widened. The corner of her lip curled. Then the sound came quiet, rusty, almost foreign after so long. A laugh. A real one. It caught her off guard. And me, too. She looked at me, hand over her mouth. God, I forgot what that feels like. I didn't answer, just watched her like I was watching something rare. Because I was. 5 years of silence broken by one laugh from a tired mother watching her daughter move. The next morning, I was pouring a cup of that terrible hospital coffee when Carla stepped beside me at the counter. She didn't make small talk, just leaned in, voice quiet. "I've worked this floor for 17 years, she said, "and I've seen a lot of families start right here." I looked at her, and she held my gaze. "You're the one who should take them home." Then she handed me a clipboard discharge prep list of pediatric appointments, recovery steps, post-op instructions. I flipped through the pages. No big words, no surprises, just weight. The weight of what she was asking, the weight of what I already knew. I met her eyes again. "I will," I said. Her nod was almost invisible. She didn't need more from me, because in that moment we both understood this wasn't about filling in for someone. It was about stepping into what should have been mine all along. And now the clock was ticking. Later that day, Dr. Mitchell pulled me aside. He didn't waste time. "She's stable. The meds are working. If recovery stays on track, we'll release her in 5 days." I exhaled slow and steady like I'd been holding it in since the phone rang. 5 days. It didn't feel like much. It felt like the beginning of something I hadn't let myself hope for in years. That night, I opened my laptop in the waiting lounge and ordered a car seat. Not just any seat, top-rated, crash-tested, safe enough to carry something more fragile than I've ever held. I entered the shipping address to my place, not hers. I didn't ask permission. I just knew. She wouldn't be going back to the house he bought with lies. If she was going home, she was going with me. And this time, I'd make damn sure she had something real to come home to. I hadn't thought about that night in a long time, but when I hit confirm on that car seat order, the memory came crashing back. Phoenix. Summer. The bar on 9th Street. Ryan sat across from me, dress shirt, unbuttoned, whiskey in hand. His smirk had that venom-coated shine I hadn't seen coming yet. "I bet I can take her from you in 2 weeks, he said, swirling the glass. I remember laughing, confused, offended, stupid. I thought we were brothers. Men like us didn't pull knives in the dark. 2 weeks later, I was holding a wedding invitation with her name and his printed in gold. "You'll regret this," he'd said. Maybe I did. But as I stood by Emily's hospital bed, now watching her breathe, watching our daughter sleep 2 floors down, I realized something. Regret cuts 2 ways, and some debts don't get paid in silence. That night, after Katie fell asleep in the nursery and the halls grew still, I finally asked her, "Do you still love him?" Emily stared out the window, Seattle's skyline, a blur of lights and fog. Her voice was low. "Careful, he's the father of my child." I nodded once. Quiet. Let the weight of those words sit between us like a wall. But then I leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice colder than I meant. "Father's just a word, Emily. It doesn't mean anything if he's not here when it matters." She turned slowly, finally meeting my eyes. I didn't blink, didn't flinch. Being a father means being present, being the hands that hold her when she cries, the voice that shows up day after day, even when no one else does. She didn't answer, but her silence told me she was starting to believe I might be right. And maybe that scared her more than anything. She turned her face toward me, eyes rimmed red but steady now. No excuses left, just truth. "I'm ashamed, Jack," she said, voice thin but clear. I chose the wrong man. I thought I was smart, different, but I wasn't. And in the process, she swallowed hard. I broke the only person who ever showed up for me. Her words were a knife, but not the kind meant to wound, the kind meant to cut something loose. I reached for her hand, firm but gentle. "People screw up," I said, eyes locked on hers. "Then they fix it. That's the difference." She blinked, and for the first time I saw not a victim, not a stranger, but the woman I'd once known fighting her way back. Out in the hall, a monitor beeped, like a second hand ticking down. Inside, something shifted. It felt like the start of a reckoning neither of us could dodge. While Emily whispered her shame halfway across the country, Ryan was laughing. Resort deck. Sunglasses, cocktail sweating in his hand, a blonde on his arm giggling at nothing. "I'm a dad now," he joked, tapping his drink. Diapers, bottles, the whole 9 yards. He didn't even ask about the hospital, didn't care if Emily lived or died. The scene was obscene in its ease, sunlight glinting off turquoise water, steel drums playing. The only flowers near him were in a centerpiece on the bar. No calls, no questions, no man. Somewhere thousands of miles away, a brand new bouquet sat in the passenger seat of his Porsche, already drooping at the edges. He hadn't even bothered to check the time. By the time he finally showed up to play husband, the part would already be taken. And this time there would be no act to follow. Back at Harborview, Carla sat at the nurse's station watching me feed Katie from a bottle with the awkward tenderness of a man who's learning fast. She picked up Emily's chart, flipped to the communication log. Her pen hovered for a beat. Then she wrote in bold strokes, "Husband contacted. Acknowledged discharge instructions." She dotted the last letter hard. Ink bled into the paper like a signature of intent. Then she set the pen down and gave a small, satisfied nod. Rules were rules, but sometimes rules protected the wrong people. Sometimes you had to bend the paper so the truth would fit. She closed the chart with a soft thump and looked across the ward at us. The tired woman, the baby with no father, the man who wouldn't walk away again. The wheels were already turning, and the countdown had started. 5 days until discharge. 5 days to change everything. That night, I moved without thinking, refilled the water pitcher, adjusted her pillows, checked the IV line. Emily's breathing slowed. Deeper. Safer. For the first time in days, her forehead wasn't creased with pain. I turned, quietly walked over to the bassinet. Empty. Katie was in the nursery tonight for monitoring, but the sight of that blank space where a life should be hit like a steel pipe to the gut. A family. A room with 3 hearts inside it. That was the picture I saw. And it didn't fit in Ryan's house. I looked at Emily, then back at the bassinet. The sterile hum of the monitors, the soft hiss of oxygen, the weight of promises not yet spoken, they all built to a point inside my chest. I whispered into the dark, "They're not going back to that house." I didn't just mean the building, I meant everything it stood for. Morning came early. The nurse handed me a swaddle, and I followed her lead, one corner over tuck, under gentle hand behind Katie's head. "Breathe with her," she said. We practiced chest-to-chest breathing. I learned how to hold her so her lungs could work easier. Every movement mattered. I opened an app and logged everything: feeding time, diaper change, oxygen level. I ticked checklists like a soldier on duty. Across the room, Emily watched. She didn't say much, but when I caught her gaze, she wasn't looking at me like I was a visitor anymore. She looked like someone remembering something she'd lost. Trust. She gave me the smallest nod, nothing dramatic. Just enough to say, "I see you." And in that moment, I knew. Fatherhood isn't blood, it's breath. Breath given shared and protected one tiny lungful at a time. By noon, the head nurse pulled me aside hesitant. "There's a change in the billing. NICU monitoring wasn't originally covered. There's a new number." I didn't flinch, didn't even blink. I stepped into the hallway and called my accountant. "Wire it. Full amount. Now." "No problem, Mr. Carter." By the time I returned, Dr. Mitchell was waiting by the door. He looked down at the file, then at me. "You just saved a fight we didn't have time for." He extended his hand. This time it wasn't clinical, it was personal. "Not many would do what you're doing," he said. His eyes held the weight of every patient he'd watched live and die. I shook his hand tight. "I'm not many." No more hesitation, no more halfway. She wasn't just someone I loved. She was someone I was invested in. And that changes everything. Even the math. Her name had been Infant Bennett for 4 days, just a label, a placeholder in a system built for detachment. But that morning, the nurse brought a new form. I sat beside Emily's bed. She was stronger now, color returning, shoulders not sinking so deep into the mattress. I placed the clipboard on her lap. "Full name?" the nurse asked. I looked at Emily. She didn't hesitate, just gave a quiet nod. I took the pen, wrote it with a hand that barely trembled: Katie Bennett. The moment the ink dried, something shifted, as if a bell had been rung in a place no one could see. It wasn't just a name, it was a promise. Every syllable whispered, "She's not temporary. She's not borrowed. She's ours." The nurse read it back aloud. Katie Bennett. Emily smiled, and I felt the sound settle into my chest, like a vow I didn't have to speak out loud. That evening, as Emily rested and Katie slept, I found myself thumbing through my wallet, not looking for cash, just muscle memory. Then I remembered. I looked over at Emily. "You ever wonder why I left Phoenix without a word?" She turned slowly. "All the time. I wrote you a letter," I said, 2 pages. "I was going to read it to you. That night at the lake." "You remember," she nodded. Didn't blink. "I never got the chance. Ryan was already there. You were already gone." She didn't speak, but her eyes softened. I still have it, I said. In a box. Bottom drawer. Never opened it again. She reached out, barely brushing my hand. I know, she whispered. I felt it even when I tried not to. No music played, no swelling strings, just two people sitting in the dark, heavy with everything almost said. But the silence between us, it was finally starting to forgive. With only 2 days left, I moved fast. I bought the car seat already done, but added a fleece blanket, infant bottles, a soft pink beanie that looked like something from a dream I'd never let myself have. Then I went home, not just to sleep, but to make it theirs. I cleared out the guest room, ordered a crib, a changing table, a second-hand rocking chair that looked like it had stories to tell. As I unpacked screws and bolts, the apartment began to feel less like a hideout and more like a home. Midnight hit while I was still assembling the rocker. My hands ached, eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. I kept thinking, she's gonna see this. Katie's gonna see this. And for once, that thought didn't scare me. It made my fingers move faster, because this wasn't improvisation anymore. This was intention. This was choosing them loudly, completely, without apology. I was tightening the last strap on the car seat when the message came in. Ryan Walsh, pick up 3 p.m. You guys ready? No greeting, no question. Just a line like he was calling an Uber, but discharge was scheduled for 2 p.m. I read it again. My jaw locked. The phone trembled in my hand. Ready for what? For him to swoop in after 5 days of silence, snap a photo for his socials, and vanish again. Emily sat nearby, holding Katie, too tired to speak, too used to this pattern. He hadn't asked about her vitals. He hadn't asked about Katie's lungs. He hadn't even asked what hospital we were at. He assumed we'd wait, that we'd follow, that he'd still hold the leash. I slid the phone into my pocket. Not today. This time, he'd have to face someone who wouldn't flinch. The room was too quiet, and I couldn't take it anymore. I looked her in the eye and asked what I'd been holding in since the moment I walked into the ICU. Are you still choosing him? Her lips quivered. Jack, say it. Tears welled. She looked down at Katie. I'm scared, she said finally. I don't know how to start over. I don't want to raise her alone. She needs her father. I took a breath that tasted like fire. She doesn't need a man who shows up when it's convenient, I said. She needs one who's present. Every hour, every bottle, every night she's screaming with fever. She held Katie tighter, and the silence wrapped around us like cold fog. You've seen the difference I added, so don't lie to yourself now. The baby stirred in her arms as if she felt the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Before Emily could respond, Carla walked in, always on time, never by accident. She carried a small folder and handed it to Emily. Pediatric follow-up, she said. First shots, weight checks, reflux tracking. Then softer, just between them, she added, wherever they respect you. That's home. Emily froze. No one had said it to her that plainly before. Not her parents. Not Ryan. Not even me. Her fingers ran along the folder's edge like it was a lifeline, and I saw it hit her not just the logistics of leaving, but the reason to stay gone. Respect. The thing she'd quietly craved for years, buried under smiles and compromise. Carla gave her one last glance, then walked away without waiting for thanks. Mentors don't need applause. They just hand you the truth and leave you to decide what kind of person you'll be on the other side of it. 35. The doctor's word. The next morning, Dr. Mitchell walked in with a confidence I hadn't seen all week. Clipboard in hand, he glanced at Emily's vitals and smiled. Everything looks good. Labs are steady. No signs of secondary complications. Emily exhaled with relief, her shoulders finally dropping from their guarded perch. He looked at us both. She'll need 2 weeks of complete rest. No stress, no sudden changes. Stable environment only. I nodded slowly, but inside, something sharpened. No stress. Ryan was stress. He was the opposite of recovery. The lies, the gaslighting, the selfish gravity that pulled her down every time she tried to stand. I watched Emily saw how her fingers curled at the thought. She didn't need convincing. She just needed space. And I could give her that. Not because I was her past, but because I was willing to be her safe future. It was Carla who suggested it. You haven't held her yet, she said as if stating the weather. I froze. She was right. Emily gave a small nod, eyes soft. I stepped forward, arms uncertain, and Carla guided Katie into my hands. She was so light, I thought I'd drop her, but she didn't cry, didn't even flinch. Her tiny hand reached up and caught the fabric of my shirt right near my heart, and held on. Emily watched, not blinking, not breathing. Katie nestled her cheek into the curve of my shoulder, made this tiny noise, half sigh, half heartbeat, like choosing, like claiming. I stood there wrapped in something wordless, as if the smallest person in the room had just drawn a line in the sand. That was the moment I stopped being the man around her. I became hers, and she became mine. After I placed Katie back in her bassinet, I walked straight to the lobby and pulled out my phone. Car seat was secured, Emily's bag packed, her prescriptions already picked up. I mapped the drive, twice no toll roads, no construction zones. I booked a rideshare with a heated interior, soft suspension tinted windows. Then, almost as an afterthought, I called the florist 2 blocks down. White lilies, I said, no carnations, fresh. Deliver before 1:30 p.m., no delays. I wasn't leaving anything to chance, because I knew Ryan. He'd arrive late, smile like it didn't matter, act like he was still center stage, but this wasn't his show anymore. This was ours, and the final act would be written without him. As I ended the call, I looked down at my checklist. Everything was in place. Everything. Except one decision Emily hadn't said out loud. Yet. Ryan strolled out of SeaTac International with his signature sunglasses and a confidence built on mirrors. He held a bouquet of long-stemmed lilies wrapped in layers of imported paper and self-importance, but instead of heading straight to the hospital, he flirted with the florist, took his time, asked her name, told a joke she didn't laugh at. By the time he hit Ive, the traffic was brutal Friday afternoon gridlock, honking horns, red brake lights like a river of stalled ambition. He tapped the steering wheel, checked his Rolex. 1:48 p.m., 1:55, 2:00, 2:07. Somewhere across the city, a nurse was wheeling out a woman and her baby. Somewhere a man was opening a car door for them. And by the time Ryan reached the hospital driveway, the only thing waiting for him was a cold lobby and a receptionist with no one left to discharge. Too late. Again. Back at Harborview, Carla did one final walk around. She checked the car seat, adjusted the straps with the sharp efficiency of a woman who'd seen too many first-timers get it wrong. She gave me a nod, approval, respect, maybe even a touch of pride. Emily stepped out in a soft gray coat, Katie bundled close to her chest. Her movements were careful, not weak, like someone walking away from something heavy. I opened the SUV door. She climbed in, settled Katie beside her, then looked up at me. I closed the door gently. Not a slam. A seal. Inside that vehicle wasn't confusion or broken promises or a man who disappeared when things got hard. It was us. As I slid behind the wheel, I didn't have to say it. The engine purred to life. This was the sound of a decision made. And we didn't look back. The apartment felt warmer than I remembered. Maybe it was the kettle whistling low on the stove, or the faint scent of fresh paint and soap. Or maybe it was the baby blanket draped over the arm of the couch that made everything softer. Emily stepped inside, slowly, eyes scanning the walls like she was entering a place built in a dream she once forgot. I took her coat, set her bag down by the crib. She walked over, unwrapped Katie, and placed her gently in the bassinet. The room went quiet, just the soft inhale of a newborn, the steady hush of Seattle rain outside. Emily turned. "This is your place." I nodded. She looked down again at Katie. Her voice was almost too quiet. "Is this home?" I held her gaze steady. "Open, if you want it to be." And in the silence that followed, she didn't say no. Ryan stormed into Harborview's front lobby, dragging the smell of overpriced cologne and entitlement behind him. He slapped the counter once. "I'm here to pick up my wife." The receptionist didn't flinch, just typed nails clicking like distant gunfire. She looked up, expression neutral, patient. Emily Bennett was discharged at 2:04 p.m. today. He checked his watch, 2:39 p.m. "Picked up by her husband," she added. He blinked. She shook her head. "Already signed for. Doctor's orders confirmed. You're not listed as emergency contact." Ryan's jaw worked, but no words came out. Power shifted in that moment quietly, irreversibly. The receptionist turned her screen away and tapped the next name on the list. Ryan stood there like a man who realized the door had closed and the house no longer belonged to him. A second too late, a mile too far. And this time no one was waiting. He called her anyway. The phone barely rang once before she picked up. "Emily." Her voice was calm, firm. "Oh, so you did find the hospital." Silence. She didn't let him speak. "I figured you'd show up eventually. You always do, just not when it counts." "Where are you?" he asked. "I'm safe," she said. He hated the way she said it, like she hadn't felt that in years. "I'm with Jack now," she added. "You don't need to call again, Emily." But the line had already gone quiet. No shouting, no dramatic exit, just a clean break sealed by finality. And on his end, all that remained was the reflection of his own name fading from relevance, echoing in a device that didn't belong to her anymore. She had made her choice, and it wasn't him. My phone lit up with Ryan's number. I didn't let it go to voicemail. I answered slowly like a man who already knew how the conversation would end. "Ryan." He didn't say anything. I leaned into the silence. "The game's over," I said, each word flat measured. "You don't get to play here anymore." Still nothing. "I've built something here, something real. Don't test your luck on my turf. You won't like how I defend it." I waited, still quiet. Then I hung up. Click. No screaming, no debate. Just the sound of the line dying and something with it. Somewhere out there, he was holding a phone that felt a little heavier than before. And when it slipped from his hand and cracked against the sidewalk, it didn't sound like defeat. It sounded like irrelevance. We didn't plan anything fancy. Just pasta tossed with olive oil and garlic, store-bought sauce warmed on the stove, a little shaved Parmesan, 2 chipped bowls and a baby monitor resting between them on the table. Katie was asleep in the next room. The overhead bulb cast a warm yellow halo over everything. It felt almost like a movie. A quiet one, the kind with no soundtrack, just forks scraping ceramic and the soft clink of 2 people daring to relax. Emily took a bite, paused, closed her eyes. I forgot what a normal dinner felt like, she whispered. Not rushed, not fake, just warm. I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because for the first time in 5 years, she didn't look afraid of calm, and neither did I. But calm is fragile. After dinner, we sat on the couch, Emily holding Katie, me holding my breath. "What about custody?" she asked quietly. I met her eyes. "I have a lawyer on retainer." She nodded. "He's not just going to walk away, Jack." "No," I said. "But we're not walking backward either." There was silence. Not the heavy kind. This one had weight, yes, but also courage. "We'll fight if we have to," I said. "But this time we do it smart. Legal. Solid." Emily looked down at Katie's tiny fist curled like a rosebud on her chest. "Okay," she said. "No more running." And in that moment, it wasn't just about court or rights. It was about facing the shadows together. Later that night, I heard Katie stir. Emily had just dozed off on the couch, and I didn't want to wake her. So I tried. The diaper felt like it had more tabs than a NASA prototype. The wipes stuck to each other like duct tape. Katie stared up at me, mildly amused, like she knew I was flying blind. Emily woke halfway through and started laughing. Not mocking, more like relief. "You're hopeless," she giggled. I kept going. 5 minutes later, it was done. Crooked, but done. Katie cooed. I adjusted her blanket. Emily smiled soft and sleepy. "You did good, Dad." It hit harder than any punch Ryan ever threw. Dad, not Jack, not you. A title I'd earned, without paperwork. And suddenly, I didn't feel like I was filling in for anyone anymore. I was the one here. And that mattered more than blood ever could. The clinic smelled of lemon wipes and baby powder, sterile but oddly comforting. Dr. Campos flipped through Katie's chart, nodded once, and gave a soft smile. "She's gaining weight beautifully. Strong lungs, alert eyes. Whatever you two are doing, keep it up." Emily beamed. She jotted notes quickly into a small, leather-bound planner, one I hadn't seen her use since college. Dosages, vaccination dates, nap windows. I added a reminder to my phone while bouncing Katie gently in my arms. We didn't talk much in that room, but we didn't need to. Movements synced. Intentions mirrored. 2 people running point on the most fragile life in the world, without ego, without second-guessing. When we left, the doctor glanced at us one last time. "You're a solid team," she said. We didn't answer, but we both felt it. We weren't just improvising anymore. We were parenting. Together. That night, long after the house had gone still, I opened the old wooden box buried in the back of my closet. Inside, folded neatly under old receipts and watch batteries, was the letter, written 5 years ago, the night Emily left with Ryan. Half apology, half last chance. I never sent it. My hands shook a little as I read it, like I was holding the version of me I'd fought so hard to outgrow. The man who begged for love that didn't love him back. I walked to the kitchen, unfolded the gas burner, and struck a match. The paper curled, slowly blackened, and turned to ash. No ceremony, no dramatics, just quiet release. The past had taken enough. I wasn't going to carry its weight into a home built for something new. The flame flickered out, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I'd lost anything. Ryan stared at the name Jack Carter typed into his notes app, jaw clenched. He thought he knew me. The old me. The guy from Phoenix with a paper resume and no fight left. So he did what men like him do. He started digging. Called a friend in Seattle real estate. "You got anything on a Jack Carter?" The voice on the other end let out a dry laugh. "You mean that Jack Carter? The one buying out half of Westlake Strip Mall Row? That Jack Carter?" Pause. Silence. Then, "You picked the wrong man to underestimate." Ryan hung up without responding. His smirk cracked at the edges, because in that moment he realized I hadn't just rebuilt myself. I'd built a life he couldn't touch, a name that didn't need to borrow worth. And this time, I was ready. Ryan pulled into his upscale condo's underground garage. The engine ticked in the silence, cooling faster than the disappointment pooling in his chest. Next to him on the passenger seat sat the bouquet, once vibrant, now wilted. The petals had curled inward like fists gone slack. No lights on upstairs, no Emily waiting, no Katie crying in the next room, just square footage and echo. He left the flowers there, unopened, unsent, a relic of a role he never earned. The silence in his home wasn't just empty. It was final. There were no apologies to give, no arguments to win, just a man with no one left to lie to but himself. And for the first time, even he didn't believe it anymore. Morning in Seattle carries a kind of softness. The sun doesn't shout, it just nudges the blinds, casts gentle gold across the hardwood. I brewed coffee in the French press, black hot sharp. Emily sat across from me, half a slice of toast in hand, hair tied up, eyes still sleepy. Katie cooed in her bassinet, kicking one sock off, like she was already in a hurry to grow up. We didn't speak much, but something had shifted. Peace wasn't a stranger anymore. It lived here now in small sips and shared glances, in the quiet understanding of two people who'd walked through fire and come out holding something they didn't want to drop again. "I feel enough," I whispered. Emily looked at me like she understood, because we'd spent years chasing more. And now, finally, we had just right. After breakfast, the words had nowhere left to hide. I turned toward her coffee, still warm in my hands. Heart beat louder than logic. I reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. "You don't have to go," I said. "Not because of guilt, not because of Katie, and definitely not because of what's behind you." I paused, searching for the right anchor. "Stay. Because of us. Because you want to see what happens if we stop breaking." Her eyes shimmered but didn't fall apart. And then, in the smallest voice I'd ever heard from her, "I want to try again." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't wrapped in violins or candlelight. It was better. It was real. And somewhere between the crust of toast and the softness of morning light, hope returned. She didn't bring much, just a soft duffel bag, a few onesies for Katie, her favorite tea, and a framed photo from her parents' cabin. I opened the tall white dresser in the bedroom, cleared a shelf for her, a drawer for diapers, and built a small corner with folded blankets just for Katie. Emily paused in the doorway. Her eyes lingered on the space I'd made, as if drawers could speak. "They're just things I said quietly, but they're yours now. If you want them to be." She stepped forward and ran her fingers across the wood. Soft, unspoken. That drawer wasn't just for storage. It was a promise, a carved-out place that said, "We'll make room for you, for her, for us." And this time it wouldn't be temporary. We sat across from each other that night, no baby between us, no distractions, no room to hide. I was angry, I told her, and I buried it under logic, pretended it didn't hurt. She didn't blink. I made choices that wrecked people. I thought I was surviving. I was destroying. There was no shouting. Only truth, quiet, difficult, earned. We laid down new rules like two architects rebuilding after the fire. "No lies," she said. "No disappearing," I added. We shook on it, half serious, half desperate to believe in something not made of splinters. Love isn't blind. It sees everything and still stays. We weren't erasing the past. We were choosing not to repeat it. And that made all the difference. Green Lake in September holds the kind of air that makes you want to slow down. Maples turning amber dogs, pulling leashes, joggers sweating out their sins. We moved at stroller pace. Katie was asleep, her tiny beanie tilted slightly sideways. Emily wore a hoodie I hadn't seen in years. I carried a thermos of her favorite mint tea. We didn't talk much, just walked. Then near the benches, an older woman glanced over, smiled at Katie, looked at me. "She's got your eyes," she said. Emily froze for half a second, then laughed. The kind of laugh that tastes like forgiveness. I laughed too, not because I believed it was true, but because she wanted it to be. And sometimes that's all it takes for truth to grow. He sat alone in the dim cabin of his Porsche. The engine had long stopped, but he hadn't moved. The air inside was stale sharp with the scent of leather and something less tangible regret. The cracked phone screen in his hand reflected half his face, a fracture running straight across his eye. No music, no calls, no woman, no baby. For the first time, Ryan Walsh had nothing to say, because this wasn't the kind of loss you could drink through or bury under bravado. He didn't just lose a woman, he lost a war he never realized had begun. He tried to play a game with no rules against a man who stopped playing altogether. Silence wasn't his choice tonight. It was his sentence. The knock came soft familiar, Carla off shift dropping by for just a moment. She handed me a manila envelope with a grin. "Security gave me this. Thought you'd want it." Inside was a single printed still captured from the hospital's discharge cam. Me, Emily, Katie. We stood in front of the automatic glass doors, light spilling in from behind like a benediction. I had my hand on the car seat. Emily held the diaper bag like it was a badge of honor. Katie slept. No posing, no filters. Just 3 lives captured in a rare, unplanned moment of truth. 3 faces, 1 future, a family ours. I slid the photo into the fridge magnet next to the coffee schedule. Not for show, but to remember what it cost and what it gave us back. I stared into the mirror toothbrush, idle in hand. Same jawline, same tired eyes. But the man staring back wasn't the one who left Phoenix 5 years ago. That version of me had something to prove. This one, he had something to protect. My reflection carried scars, some on the skin, some deeper, but I noticed something new. A calm. Not the numb kind, but the kind you fight for. I touched the line at the corner of my mouth, a place where a smile now lived more often than not. "I made the right call," I whispered. "Not to anyone, just me." Because after everything, through every storm and silence, I hadn't just rebuilt my life. I'd chosen it, and this time it was mine. The house was still. Katie's breathing rose and fell in my arms like ocean waves, small, rhythmic, safe. Emily leaned into my shoulder, eyes half closed, fingers tracing the hem of my sleeve like it grounded her. The glow from the kitchen nightlight cast soft halos on the tile floor. No voices, no tension, just warmth. I rocked gently. She whispered, "She only sleeps this well when you hold her." I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because some truths didn't ask for confirmation. They just were. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked softly. I pressed my cheek to Katie's head and murmured the words I didn't know I'd been waiting to say. "When I'm here, you don't have to worry anymore." Emily let out a breath, not of relief, but of belief. And in that moment, we weren't surviving. We were safe. I looked straight into the lens. No filters, no background music, just me, Jack Carter, and behind me the sound of a baby's breath. Emily humming something soft in the kitchen, a home that once felt impossible, now echoing with peace. There was a time I thought happiness was something that found you like luck, or lightning, or a second chance. But that's not the truth. The truth is happiness doesn't land. It's built one hard, brave choice at a time. To show up, to stay, to forgive, to protect. Maslow got it right. Survival, safety, love, respect, purpose. I didn't find them in a promotion or a Porsche or a perfect past. I found them in a hospital room holding a child that wasn't mine until she was. I press my lips to Katie's forehead. She stirs, smiles in her sleep. And I say to you, to anyone still listening, if you've ever walked away from something broken just to protect someone you love, tell me your story. I'm listening.